Welcome back to Two Attorneys Arguing. First Amendment rights. I have freedom of speech. I can do whatever I want. And everyone thinks they can do that. Like on college campuses, I noticed that more people claim to understand their rights until you actually ask them. I have a First Amendment right to block you from going into this classroom, for example.
You know what? This is a very nuanced issue because no matter where you fall in your religious or political spectrum, and no matter how much you will stand on the mountain screaming you believe in free speech, you actually don't.
No. Only when it helps you. Yeah, only when it helps you.
So how do we square that? Why do people say, oh, I can say whatever I want, and if you try to stop me from saying whatever I want, that is a violation of my free speech rights?
I have the answer.
Can the government stop you? Can private citizens stop you? Can the government, in combination, in cahoots with private citizens, can they stop you?
Normally, somebody says what they need to say until they have to pay for it. And then it's all a different story. And there are a lot of you out there who are not going to like what I have to say. When a police officer pulls me over, the first thing I say is, how can I help you, officer? He asked for my license. I give him my license. He asked me for my registration. I give him my registration. Now, very rarely have I ever been asked, can I check the car? Now, here's the thing. If I have nothing in the car.
Rarely?
Yeah, one time.
That has ever happened to you, that they asked to search your car?
When I was younger.
That's never happened to me.
Well, that's because they normally saw the car you were in. No, I'm kidding. You pull up to your truck, they go, hey, nothing in here. Maybe some shotgun shells. We don't know.
Some dead pheasants.
They might not want to know. He had this dead squirrel he shot last week. No. I had it happen when I was in college, and I didn't have anything in my car. Now, police officers don't have a right to arbitrarily search your car, but they have what they call probable cause. They'll go, oh, I smell marijuana. That's always the good one. I smell marijuana. Now, what people don't also know is they can do an inventory. If they arrest you, they can inventory your car.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. I think most attorneys are.
But most people aren't.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people don't realize that if they arrest you, they can search the car afterwards. So let's say you do something.
Yeah, that's true.
Or like a search incident to arrest. That's how it is in most states. Now, we get a lot of questions. And people go, well, that doesn't apply to Wisconsin. Well, I can't give you the law for Wisconsin because I'm also not licensed in Wisconsin. Licensed in 18 other states, but not Wisconsin. So yeah, certain states have different rules. Like, for example, I think you have a question in your pocket that you read to me a second ago.
How do you know where the question is?
Because you gave up the bucket because you couldn't put your drink. You couldn't fit the drink in the same space as the bucket.
I was going to do a whole comedy thing with me pulling out my pocket. You just ruined it.
All right, well then let's go back. Then do your whole
skit. You would
skit.
think as a fellow comedian, you would give me the benefit of the doubt.
When did you become a comedian?
On this?
No, you're a fellow comedian now?
Yes.
What was the last time you got on stage?
On this show.
Last time I put you on a stage, you looked up at that and go, Jeff, you got this.
I am, what?
Do you remember when we were in front of all those bikers and they were going to ask you to say something and you looked at me and go, you got this?
No, I don't remember that at all. No, bikers, those are my people. Yeah. They love me.
They go, hey, Craig, talk about the law. And you looked at me and go, I ain't talking about the law.
Yeah, I didn't want to bore him to death.
I know. So you said, hey.
I'll let you can bore him to death. That's the problem.
Get your silly ass up there to do it. I remember.
I said, get your silly ass up there.
No, you go, you got this. You go, you got this. I go, I didn't know I had it. I guess I do.
I think you're making this up.
No, I didn't, because we had camera people there, and because of all the colorful metaphors that came out of my mouth, we couldn't use it. Remember Kelly was on the camera?
You're lying.
$5,000. That's how comfortable I am right now. $5,000. Or the blue book value of your truck right now.
Whichever's less. My truck is only not worth very much because I had to replace the engine a couple of times.
18 years old. You know what? Oh, while we're on it, tell them why they had to replace the engine. Remember the chip? The super chip you had put in your car? Okay,
so I have a truck. And if you have a truck, you can do well, I mean, if you have any kind of car, you can do this. You can buy these aftermarket chips.
Aftermarket.
To put in your car or your truck. And what it does is it removes all of the safety features. The governors, the things that keep the engine from revving too high. Well, yeah, it does that too. Yeah. But that's just the end consequence of running the RPM too high for too long. But so my truck tows a lot of weight. In order to tow that kind of weight, though, it needs to have a certain level of power in the engine.
Is that what your purpose for doing?
But they don't want you to be able to use all that power just to take off. So if you put a governor on there, a chip. It pulls the governors off. Yeah. So you can use all that power, not to tow, but to take off from a light or to get up to the speed limit very, very, very,
and it also protects the engine, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, it does.
And you wound up, how can I say it, going a little too fast for this engine?
Well, see, when I took it in to the shop, they said, hey, you bent the pistons. And I said, oh, okay, well, this is kind of a new truck, and is that covered by the warranty? And they said, well, normally it would be if there was a problem with the pistons that was something other than them being bent. But if I put in a request to Ford telling them that the pistons got bent, they're going to send an investigator down here because that is so unusual. The car is engineered so that the pistons can't be bent the way they manufacture it. So they're going to see that you put a chip on it.
Yes.
And that's going to void the warranty.
They'll ask for the chip. They'll say, hey, listen, can we see the chip?
Well, it'll void the warranty. So, yeah. I mean, we can try that if you want, but I know what's going to happen, or you can just pay for a new engine.
Okay, I'm now in charge of the paper. If you have watched our past videos, you'll realize he can't help it. He's got basically my precious. Okay. And you're going to see how quick I get rid of this paper too, so that I am not.
Oh, God forbid you don't, because I'll call you out on it.
I know you
I pray for you to crinkle it one time, because you're going to hear about it.
A driver was ticketed for flashing his headlights to warn other drivers of a speed trap. He claims it's a free speech issue. I got rights. While police argue it interferes with law enforcement, should drivers have the right to warn others about speed traps, or is this obstructing the law?
That is not obstructing the law in Florida. It could be in other states, but it's not in Florida. It was for a little while. And isn't that weird, Jeff?
2013, I think they changed the law. Was it 2013?
I believe so. I believe so. Your constitutional rights were one way in 2012.
It's amazing how that happens.
And then the Constitution didn't change in 2013. And then your constitutional rights are a different way in 2015. How does that work?
I'll tell you why. Because our Constitution is a living, breathing piece of paper. It's the way it works. We change. Certain laws aren't exactly the same they were. Like gun rights before are absolutely different than they were 200 years ago. Before, nobody came by your house. There was no registering a weapon.
Yeah.
But now different states have different rules when it comes to that. Federal laws apply. You think there was a computer database back then to say, no, this person's crazy, he shouldn't have a gun. Things change because there are 4,000 pieces of case law that happened since these rights were established.
And so you have a bunch of different judges interpreting the same laws differently. And then you get this chaos we call the legal system.
And so you know how this changes. Eventually it gets appealed and appealed and appealed. And then it gets to the federal level. And then some federal court makes a determination. And then that gets appealed, and then it goes to the Supreme Court. And it can get to the Supreme Court in other ways. Sometimes it could be brought up on its own. Sometimes the court can do that. But most of the time, it follows a certain course. And then the Supreme Court makes a decision. Then 20 years later, the Supreme Court makes an absolutely different decision.
From the police officer's perspective, you can make a pretty good argument that your exercise of your free speech rights actually is interfering with my police investigation. You really did keep me from giving that guy a ticket because now he's going under the speed limit, and 3 seconds before he got to my radar, he was doing 10 over.
Well, here's the argument against that, too. They're going to say, listen, we have laws on the books, for example, using your headlights, using your high beams, that you're not allowed to use your high beams within 500 feet of another car or 500 yards. So if I pop normally it pops the high beams, not your low beams, when you do the quick pop.
Sure.
So how do I get around that?
What do you mean get around? Am I getting around it?
Well, I'm going to charge you with popping your high beams.
Oh, because you're not actually using. Well, now you're making me take the driver's position. The driver's position is I'm not using them in a continuous fashion. I'm popping them for less than a second to communicate an issue to somebody else. And what I'm communicating is slow down. That's what I'm communicating. I'm not communicating, hey, there's officers up here, you should do whatever it takes. That's the effect of it, sure. But what I'm saying is, careful, slow down.
Now, how do you argue, for example, these kids that drug dealers hire to sit on their neighborhood and tell them when the cops are coming so they can stop selling drugs?
That's an exception to the free speech rule because you are conspiring. You're using your free speech in the commission of a crime. So I see the analogy you're trying to make. Why can't you make that same analogy to the people who are popping their high beams? I guess because it comes down to being able to prove it, right? Because you can't prove that me popping my high beams, that I wasn't just saying slow down. You were really saying there's police up there and be careful.
Well, I'm not really conspiring also because I don't know you. I don't have a benefit. I'm just letting everybody know, hey, listen, there are cops around here. I don't like
slow
this.
Slow down.
And here's how I feel about this personally. I don't like speed traps. I think they're revenue generating. I don't have a problem with people on the road doing this, but sitting behind a fence, knowing that you're going to catch people all day, in comparison to being on the road as a deterrent. See, I'm not being a deterrent when I do a speed trap. What I'm doing is I'm basically generating revenue. Now, if you're on the road and you see somebody blow by, or you're coming up on a group of cars that are burning by, I kind of support that. You're doing this. You're not setting people up, and I don't like it, but I understand it. Safety issues.
It's way different than being a kid on a bike holding a flashlight and hitting it twice when the police come into the neighborhood so that some other kid 700 yards away can warn his guys, hey, get out of here. Now I'm actually doing that to prevent you from being caught while you're committing a crime. The purpose of that communication is different, I think.
Now, there's a lot of issues now on college campuses where they bring out these guys, and they're normally conservatives. And I think it's the way conservatives feel superior to college kids. They go out there and they ask them a bunch of questions, and the kids are, I'm for this, and they catch them lying in this. And
I don't think
it's not about that. I'm not getting political about this, but it does let us know we have a problem. The problem is this: there are college-educated people who do not know the basics of the Constitution. Now, we force them to take a class in English. We force them to take mathematics sometimes, and we force them to actually take social humanities. Like, you should know about art. I think every college student, as a requirement, should have to take a basic constitutional class where they go over what the amendments are. And they say, hey, these are what they are. So at least it gives these people who want to be activists in the future some basic knowledge of what they're arguing for. Because I got to tell you, I'm embarrassed when I see a kid come up, a college student, walk up to ask a question, and he's got his phone up trying to read what somebody else wrote him because he does not have basic constitutional knowledge. And it's not tough. You got freedom of speech. You got right to bear arms. You got a bunch of things. But if you just had to learn the basics of the Constitution, I think not only would it be better for you, but it'd definitely be better for our country. And that's everybody, whether you're Republican or Democrat, to have to take that first semester class in basic constitutional law in comparison to, you have to take a humanities. I guarantee the constitutional law will help you a lot more than learning what the favorite playwright back in 1920 was.
2 points to make on that. I don't think those conservative guys who hit the college campuses are trying to lord their intellectual superiority over anybody. They are talking to many times registered voters. So the point that you make that these guys are so dumb that they go around and misstate their rights, misstate what the Constitution is. They have to be corrected by somebody. And that's what those guys do when they go to those campuses. Hey, listen, why do you think this? What do you think that means? What do you think it means to have free speech? And those kinds of debate, they're very helpful, not necessarily for the person on the mic, but for the 75, 80, 90, 150 kids around watching this go down. They can see, oh, okay, maybe I didn't understand this the way that I thought I did. And number two, and don't hate me.
Oh, they're going to hate you. They're going to hate you. You know why? Stop now. You were good. You were good.
I'm going to say it. I got to say it. If you can't match up the definition with the word communism, socialism, democracy, if you can't do that, why are you voting in our country?
Half the people, if you said what Marxism was, they wouldn't know the answer.
Yeah, you can't vote now.
Nope.
You can't vote.
Nope.
Can you describe the three branches of government? You can't. I'm sorry, you can't vote.
Do you know that most people would not be able to pass a citizenship test who are citizens already? In fact, the failure rate would be over 50% easy. So should they not be citizens? Should we have to take our citizenship?
I'm okay with them not voting.
You would fail it. You would fail it.
If I fail it, I shouldn't vote either.
Okay.
I'm not immune to my own rule.
Before we come back, we're going to give Craig the citizenship test and see if he should have to move. Move.
Lose my vote. Lose my right to vote. Not move.
You will see in part 2.